Vincent Harrington pressed his fingers against his temples as he sat in his attorney's office on the 42nd floor of downtown Chicago. The panoramic view of Lake Michigan meant nothing to him now. His entire world had just collapsed into a single impossible demand. "Let me understand this correctly," Vincent said, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "My uncle's will states that I must be married before my 37th birthday, or the entire Harrington real estate empire goes to charity." Attorney Gerald Morrison nodded gravely. "Your uncle believed that a man without family had no business building empires. The will is legally binding. You have exactly 45 days, Mr. Harrington." Vincent stood abruptly, his 6-foot frame casting shadows across the mahogany desk. At 36, he had spent 15 years building his company into a billion-dollar powerhouse. He owned properties in 12 states, employed over 3,000 people, and had never once considered marriage. Romance was a luxury he could not afford in his climb to success. Now Uncle Theodore's final wish threatened to destroy everything. A mother's fear. 3 neighborhoods away, Rosa Martinez knelt beside her 8-year-old son's hospital bed, holding his small hand while trying to mask her terror. Tommy's pale face looked even smaller against the white pillows, his breathing supported by machines that beeped with mechanical regularity. "Mommy, when can we go home?" Tommy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rosa forced a bright smile. "Soon, mi amor. Very soon." But she knew the truth. Dr. Patterson had been clear that morning. Tommy needed a kidney transplant within 6 weeks, or his failing organs would shut down completely. The surgery and post-operative care would cost $400,000. Even with insurance, Rosa would be responsible for $180,000. She worked 3 jobs already. She cleaned offices at night, houses during the day, and waited tables on weekends. Her savings account held $12,000. It might as well have been 12 cents. "Mrs. Martinez, can we speak outside?" Dr. Patterson stood in the doorway, his expression professionally sympathetic. Rosa kissed Tommy's forehead and followed the doctor into the harsh, fluorescent hallway. She already knew what he would say. She had heard variations of it for 3 weeks now. "We need to discuss payment arrangements. The transplant team cannot proceed without financial guarantees." "I understand," Rosa whispered, blinking back tears. "I just need more time, please. He is all I have." Dr. Patterson's face softened. "I have children too. But the hospital board makes these decisions, not me. I wish I could do more." An unexpected witness, Vincent, had returned to his penthouse earlier than usual, exhausted from the meeting with Morrison. His home occupied the entire top floor of the Harrington Tower, a monument to his success that suddenly felt hollow and empty. He headed toward the kitchen for coffee and heard crying from the service hallway. Rosa Martinez, one of his housekeeping staff, stood with her back to him, phone pressed to her ear, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Please, I am begging you. My son will die without this transplant. There must be payment options, medical loans, something." Vincent froze, coffee forgotten. He recognized Rosa, though he had never spoken more than brief greetings to her. She had worked for him for nearly 3 years, always efficient, always quiet, always invisible in the way that wealth made service workers invisible. "No bank will approve that amount for someone in my position. I clean houses. I have no collateral. But he is 8 years old. He deserves to live." The raw desperation in her voice struck something deep in Vincent's chest. He thought of his own nephew, Theodore's grandson, whom Vincent barely knew because he had been too busy building his empire. Family. Legacy. The very things his uncle's will demanded he value. An idea formed in his mind. Impossible, unethical, potentially perfect. The proposal. The next morning, Vincent asked Rosa to meet him in his home office. She arrived nervously, still wearing her cleaning uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, but she stood straight, dignified even in her fear. "Please sit down, Mrs. Martinez. Have I done something wrong, Mr. Harrington? I promise my personal situation will not affect my work quality." "I overheard your phone call yesterday," Vincent said directly. He had never been good at small talk. "Your son needs a transplant. $180,000. Rosa's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I apologize that you had to hear that. It is not professional to bring personal problems to work. How much time does he have?" She looked confused by the question. 6 weeks, maybe less. Why are you asking?" Vincent leaned forward, his businessman's instincts taking over. "Because I have a problem that you can solve, and in return I can solve yours." He explained his uncle's will, the 45-day deadline, the impossible requirement. Rosa listened with growing disbelief, her hands gripping the arms of the leather chair. "You want to pay me to marry you?" "Not exactly. I want to hire you to play the role of my wife for 7 months. Long enough to satisfy the will's requirements and avoid suspicion. You would receive $200,000 immediately for your son's medical care. Another $200,000 when our arrangement ends." Rosa stood up, pacing to the window. The morning sun illuminated the Chicago skyline, a world so far removed from her tiny apartment in Pilsen that it might as well have been another planet. "This is insane. Is it more insane than watching your son die because you cannot afford to save him?" The words were harsh, but true. Rosa turned to face him, and Vincent saw the exact moment she began to consider his offer. Desperation made people capable of anything. What exactly would this marriage involve? Vincent pulled out a folder prepared by Morrison. "You would move into the guest wing here. We would attend social functions together, family gatherings, business events. To everyone outside these walls, we are a married couple. Inside, we maintain separate lives, professional boundaries, no personal involvement beyond what is necessary for appearances. And after 7 months, we divorce quietly. You receive your final payment and return to your life. I keep my company. Everyone gets what they need." Rosa thought of Tommy, his small body fighting a battle it could not win alone. She thought of the hospital bills stacked on her kitchen table, the collection agency calls, the crushing weight of helplessness. "I need guarantees, legal protections. Morrison will draft an ironclad contract. Your son's medical care will begin immediately, regardless of whether you sign. Consider it good faith." Rosa looked at this stranger, this billionaire who existed in a different universe than hers. Could she trust him? Did she have any choice? "I have conditions," she said finally. "Tommy comes first, always. If he needs me, contract or not, I go to him." "Agreed. I will not pretend to be someone I am not. I am a housekeeper from Pilsen, not some socialite." Vincent actually smiled slightly. "The media will call it a fairy tale. Cinderella marries the billionaire. It will be perfect. And when this ends, we walk away. No complications." "No complications," Vincent echoed. Rosa extended her hand. Vincent shook it, sealing an agreement that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. The contract was signed by evening. 3 days later, Vincent Harrington and Rosa Martinez stood before a judge in a quiet courthouse ceremony. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed Rosa's cheek with businesslike efficiency. Neither of them felt the ground shifting beneath their feet, the way it always does when fate decides to rewrite the rules. Rosa stood in the doorway of what Vincent called the guest wing, though it was larger than any home she had ever lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Grant Park and the lake beyond. The bedroom alone could fit her entire apartment twice over. The marble bathroom had heated floors and a shower with 6 different settings. The walk-in closet was empty, waiting to be filled with clothes she would never have chosen for herself. "This cannot be real," she whispered to herself. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Vincent's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, entered carrying garment bags and boxes. "Mrs. Harrington." The stylist will arrive in an hour. Mr. Harrington has several charity events this week, and you will need appropriate attire. I have taken the liberty of estimating your sizes, but we can exchange anything that does not fit. Mrs. Harrington. The name felt foreign on Rosa's ears. She was still Rosa Martinez in her heart, the woman who scrubbed floors and counted pennies. Thank you, Patricia. But please, you can call me Rosa. Patricia smiled professionally. Mr. Harrington insists that all staff address you formally now. You are the lady of the house. After Patricia left, Rosa sat on the enormous bed and called the hospital. Tommy had been transferred to a private room that morning, and his transplant surgery was scheduled for the following week. Dr. Patterson said they had found a matching donor through the National Registry. Everything was moving forward because Vincent had written a check without hesitation. "Mommy, when can you visit?" Tommy's voice sounded stronger already, just knowing help was coming. "Tomorrow, mi amor. And soon, you will come stay with me in a special place while you recover." Vincent had already converted one of the spare bedrooms into a recovery room for Tommy, complete with medical equipment, entertainment systems, and more toys than any child needed. A private nurse named Helen would provide round-the-clock care. Rosa hung up and allowed herself one moment of overwhelming gratitude mixed with guilt. She had sold herself into a fake marriage to save her son. What kind of mother did that make her? The kind who would do anything for her child, she decided. Just like millions of mothers before her. First appearances, their first public event was a museum gala benefiting children's education programs. Rosa stared at her reflection and barely recognized herself. The stylist had transformed her into someone who belonged in Vincent's world. The midnight blue gown hugged her curves elegantly, and professional makeup highlighted features she had always considered ordinary. Diamond earrings borrowed from a jeweler completed the illusion. Vincent appeared in the doorway wearing a tailored black tuxedo. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes as he looked at her. "You look beautiful," he said, and it sounded almost genuine. "You look uncomfortable," Rosa replied, noticing how he tugged at his bow tie. "I hate these events. Too much small talk, too many people wanting favors. Then why do you attend?" "Because running a company means playing the game. Networking, being seen, making connections." He offered his arm. "Ready to play your part?" The gala was overwhelming. Rosa found herself introduced to state senators, tech entrepreneurs, celebrity chefs, and old-money socialites who smiled with their mouths but assessed her with cold eyes. Everyone wanted to know about the mysterious woman who had captured Vincent Harrington's heart. "So romantic," gushed a woman dripping in jewels and judgment. "Love at first sight, I heard?" Rosa glanced at Vincent, who smoothly took over the conversation. "Sometimes you just know when you have found the right person. Rosa has brought light into my life that I did not know was missing." His hand found hers, squeezing gently. To observers, it looked affectionate. Rosa felt the calluses on his palms and wondered what kind of work left such marks on a billionaire's hands. Later, as they danced to satisfy the expectations of watching eyes, Vincent spoke quietly. "You are doing well. Very natural. I feel like a fraud? We both are. But we are convincing frauds." Rosa looked up at him. "Do you ever feel guilty? About lying to everyone?" Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "I learned long ago that business requires certain compromises. This is just another transaction." But as he said it, his hand tightened on her waist in a way that felt less like a transaction and more like something he could not name, unexpected kindness. As weeks passed, cracks appeared in their carefully maintained boundaries. Rosa discovered that Vincent worked impossible hours, often forgetting to eat. She began leaving meals outside his office door, the same way she cared for Tommy when he was sick. One evening, she found Vincent asleep at his desk, surrounded by contracts and cold coffee. Without thinking, she draped a blanket over his shoulders. He stirred, murmuring thanks without opening his eyes. The next morning, Rosa found a note on her breakfast tray. "Thank you for the blanket. And for the meals. You do not have to take care of me." "That is not part of our agreement," she wrote back on the same note. "Taking care of people is who I am, agreement or not." Vincent began noticing things about Rosa, too. How she sang Spanish lullabies to Tommy during video calls, her voice carrying through the penthouse. He found himself working later just to hear those gentle melodies. He observed how she treated the household staff as equals, helping them with problems, translating documents, offering advice. "Your wife is special," his building manager told him one day. "She helped my daughter with college application essays. Spent 3 hours working with her." Vincent realized he knew facts about Rosa, but understood nothing about who she actually was. Tommy comes home. 2 weeks after his successful transplant, Tommy arrived at the penthouse. Rosa watched her son's eyes grow enormous as he took in his new temporary home. "Mommy, are we rich now?" Rosa knelt to his level.
No, mi amor.
"We are just staying here for a little while. This is Mr. Harrington's home." "You can call me Vincent," Vincent said, appearing in the doorway. He felt awkward around the small boy, unsure how to interact with children. Tommy studied him seriously. "Thank you for helping my mommy save me." "She said you are very kind." Something twisted in Vincent's chest. When was the last time anyone had called him kind? His business rivals called him ruthless. His competitors called him relentless. His uncle had called him heartless. "You are welcome, Tommy. If you need anything, just ask." Over the following days, Vincent found himself drawn to sounds of laughter coming from Tommy's room. Rosa read stories with dramatic voices, played games, helped with physical therapy exercises. The apartment that had always felt like a showroom suddenly felt alive. One evening, Vincent knocked on Tommy's door during story time. "May I listen?" Tommy patted the bed beside him. "Mommy does the best voices." Vincent sat awkwardly on the edge of the bed while Rosa continued reading a tale about a dragon who wanted to be a chef. She did indeed do excellent voices. Tommy giggled at the dragon's attempts to cook soup. Vincent found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in months. After Tommy fell asleep, Rosa and Vincent stood in the hallway. "You are good with him," Vincent said. "He is my whole world. I can see that." "You are a wonderful mother." Rosa looked at him curiously. "You sound surprised." "I grew up with nannies and boarding schools. My parents were always traveling, always working. I suppose I assumed that was normal for successful people. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with." Vincent had no response to that. Truth, family judgment. Their biggest test came when Vincent's parents returned, early from their extended European vacation. Richard and Eleanor Harrington were old money aristocrats who had never approved of their son's self-made success, preferring inherited wealth to earned achievement. Eleanor insisted on hosting a formal dinner to meet her new daughter-in-law. Rosa spent the day nervous, knowing she would be judged and found wanting. The dinner was held at the family estate in Lake Forest, a mansion that made Vincent's penthouse look modest. Eleanor presided over the table like a queen, her pearls and disapproval equally prominent. "So, Rosa," Eleanor said, her tone sharp as crystal, "Vincent tells us you worked as a housekeeper before your marriage." How quaint. The table fell silent. Rosa felt every eye on her, waiting to see if she would crumble. "Yes, Mrs. Harrington. I cleaned houses to support my son after his father died. I am proud of that work. It taught me the value of honest labor." "How tragic about your husband," Eleanor continued, though her tone suggested anything but sympathy. "And now you have married our son after knowing him for mere weeks. One might wonder about your motivations," Rosa's temper flared. She had dealt with condescending wealthy women before, but never while pretending to be one herself. "I understand your concern," Rosa replied evenly. "If I had a son, I would want to make sure any woman he chose loved him for who he is, not what he has." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "And do you? Love him for who he is?" Rosa looked at Vincent, who sat frozen, clearly uncomfortable with his mother's interrogation. In that moment, Rosa realized something that terrified her. The answer was no longer as simple as it should have been. "I am learning who he really is," Rosa said carefully. "Underneath the business suits and board meetings, there is a man who pays for a child's surgery without expecting anything in return. A man who works 18-hour days because he feels responsible for 3,000 employees. A man who never learned how to stop working long enough to live." Vincent stared at her, something unreadable in his expression. Eleanor opened her mouth to respond, but Richard interrupted. I think that is enough interrogation for one evening, dear. Welcome to the family, Rosa. The dinner continued with lighter conversation, but Rosa barely tasted her food. She had spoken truth without meaning to, revealing feelings she had not known existed. On the drive home, Vincent broke the silence. Thank you for defending me. I was defending us both. What you said about me, did you mean it? Rosa looked out at the passing city lights. Yes, all of it. Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement. I know. We agreed. No complications. I know, Rosa whispered, but they both knew that complications had already begun, growing in the spaces between their scripted interactions, taking root in stolen glances and unexpected kindnesses. The line between performance and reality was blurring, and neither of them knew how to stop it. As they rode the elevator up to the penthouse in loaded silence, Rosa wondered what happened when a fake marriage started feeling real. And more terrifying, what happened when 7 months ended and they were supposed to walk away from each other forever. 3 months into their arrangement, the lines between pretend and reality had become impossibly blurred. Vincent found himself coming home earlier, looking forward to dinner conversations with Rosa and Tommy. He had started reading bedtime stories to the boy, something he never imagined himself doing. Tommy had begun calling him Tio Vincent, and the title filled him with unexpected warmth. Rosa noticed changes in Vincent, too. He laughed more easily now. The permanent tension in his shoulders had eased. He had even taken a Saturday off to take Tommy to the aquarium, insisting Rosa join them. They had spent the day like a real family, and the pretense had felt dangerously natural. One evening, after Tommy was asleep, Rosa and Vincent shared wine on the penthouse balcony. The September air was cool, and the city sparkled below them like scattered diamonds. I have been thinking, Vincent said, staring into his glass, about after, when our arrangement ends. Rosa's heart clenched. She had been avoiding thoughts of the deadline, now only 4 months away. What about it? Maybe we could extend the timeline. For Tommy's sake, he has been through so much. Another move might be difficult for him. Rosa studied Vincent's profile. Is it really for Tommy's sake? Vincent turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. I do not know anymore. This was supposed to be simple. A transaction. But somewhere along the way, you both became important to me. Vincent, we cannot. This was never supposed to be real. Why not? Who made that rule? You did. The contract. The boundaries. The agreement that we walk away when this ends. Vincent set down his wine and moved closer. Contracts can be renegotiated. Rosa stood up, needing distance from the magnetic pull she felt toward him. You do not understand. There are things about me you do not know. Things that would change how you see me. Then tell me, we are supposed to be married. Married people share their secrets. Rosa laughed bitterly. We are not really married. We are actors playing roles, are we? Because it has not felt like acting for a long time. The truth hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Rosa wanted to lean into it to admit that she had fallen for this complicated man who hid his kindness behind business deals. But the weight of her secrets held her back. I need to check on Tommy, she said, retreating into the safety of her role as mother. Vincent watched her go, frustration and longing warring in his chest. The breaking point, the next week brought Vincent's biggest real estate deal to a critical point. A merger with a European development firm that would double his company's reach. The negotiations were brutal, requiring all his focus and cunning. He worked 20-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. Rosa barely saw him. When she did, he was distant, buried under stress and exhaustion. The warmth between them cooled, and Rosa told herself it was better this way. Safer, less complicated when the inevitable end came. But Tommy noticed. Why does Tio Vincent not read stories anymore? He is very busy with work, mi amor. Is he mad at us? No, sweetheart. He is just working hard. But Tommy's question haunted her. She found herself leaving meals outside Vincent's office again, receiving no acknowledgement. The silence felt like a wall rebuilding between them. On the night the merger finalized, Vincent came home at 2 in the morning to find Rosa waiting in the living room, unable to sleep. Congratulations on your deal, she said softly. Vincent loosened his tie, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Thank you. It was worth it. The company just became twice as valuable. Is that what matters most to you? The value? He looked at her sharply. What is that supposed to mean? Nothing. I am glad you got what you wanted. Rosa, I do not have energy for cryptic conversations. Then let me be clear. Tommy asked if you were mad at us. He misses you. He does not understand why you disappeared. Vincent's expression hardened. I was closing the biggest deal of my career. That requires sacrifice. Everything requires sacrifice for you. Your time, your relationships, your happiness. You sacrifice everything for work. This is who I am. This is what I do. You knew that when you agreed to this arrangement. Yes, an arrangement. A business transaction. How could I forget? The words struck like weapons. Vincent stepped closer. Anger and something deeper flashing in his eyes. Is that what you think this still is, after everything? What else can it be? In 4 months, I take my money and leave. You keep your company. That was the deal. And if I want to change the deal? Rosa's heart pounded. You cannot just renegotiate people's lives like business contracts. Why not? Give me one good reason why we cannot make this real. Because you do not really know me. Rosa's voice cracked. You know Rosa, the housekeeper who needed saving. You do not know the whole truth. Then tell me the truth. You will hate me. Try me. Rosa turned away, tears streaming down her face. The secret she had carried for 9 years pressed against her chest like a physical weight. But Vincent deserved to know. If they were going to have any chance at something real, he needed to know everything. The confession Rosa walked to the window, gathering courage from the sleeping city below. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Tommy's father was not my husband. I was never married. Silence stretched behind her. She forced herself to continue. I was 20 years old, working as a maid at a luxury hotel. He was a guest. Wealthy, charming, handsome. He said he was divorced, that he was in Chicago on business. We had a brief relationship. 3 weeks. When I told him I was pregnant, he laughed. Rosa's hands clenched into fists. He told me the truth then. He was married with 2 children. I was just entertainment during a business trip. He offered me money to get rid of the baby. When I refused, he threatened to have me fired and deported even though I was born here. He said no one would believe a maid over a man like him. Vincent remained silent. Rosa could not bring herself to turn around and see the judgment in his eyes. I lost my job anyway. The hotel manager did not want the scandal. I was blacklisted from working at any major hotel in the city. That is why I cleaned private homes. No background checks, no questions asked. I never told anyone the truth about Tommy's father. Not even my mother. I said he died to protect my son from knowing he was unwanted by the man who created him. I have been lying for 9 years. She finally turned to face Vincent. His expression was unreadable, and fear clutched her heart. So now you know. I am not some innocent victim of circumstance. I made choices. I trusted the wrong person. I have been lying to everyone, including you, about who I really am. Vincent crossed the room slowly. Rosa braced herself for anger, for disgust, for the confirmation that she was exactly what his mother had implied. Instead, Vincent cupped her face gently, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. That man was a predator who took advantage of a young woman in a vulnerable position. Nothing about that story makes you less worthy of respect or love. Rosa's breath hitched. You do not think less of me? I think you are the strongest person I have ever met. You faced impossible circumstances and chose to protect your child. You worked 3 jobs. You maintained your dignity and kindness despite everything. How could I think less of you? Because I lied. About everything. You protected your son. That is not the same as lying for selfish reasons. Vincent's voice was fierce now. And that man who threatened you. What was his name? Rosa shook her head. It does not matter. It was a long time ago. It matters to me. No one threatens you or Tommy. Not anymore. Not while I am here. The protective intensity in his voice broke something open in Rosa's chest. Fresh tears fell, but these were different. These were tears of relief, of being seen completely and accepted anyway. I thought you would be disgusted. I am disgusted by him. By any man who would treat a woman that way, but you? Rosa, you are remarkable. Why are you being so kind to me? Vincent pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. Because somewhere in the last 3 months, this stopped being an arrangement. Because I fell in love with you and Tommy. Because I cannot imagine my life without you both in it. Rosa's heart soared and plummeted simultaneously. Vincent, you cannot mean that. I have never been more certain of anything. But the contract. The timeline. We agreed. I do not care about the contract anymore. I care about you, about us, about making this family real. Rosa wanted to believe him. Every fiber of her being wanted to step into the promise of his words. But fear held her back. What if you change your mind? What if this is just the excitement of something new? You have spent your whole life focused on business. How do I know you will not go back to that? Vincent pulled back slightly, forcing her to meet his eyes. You are right. I have spent my entire life building an empire. I thought that was what mattered. Success, wealth, power. But these past months have shown me what I was missing. A home, a family, someone to share my life with. People do not change that easily. I am not changing who I am. I am becoming who I should have been all along. He took her hands. I will probably still work too much sometimes. I will probably forget to eat. I will make mistakes. But I will do it while loving you and Tommy with everything I have. This is crazy. We barely know each other. I know that you sing lullabies in Spanish. I know that you help people without expecting anything in return. I know that you make Tommy laugh when he is scared. I know that you leave me sandwiches outside my office door because you care. I know that you are brave and stubborn and kind. What else do I need to know? Rosa felt her defenses crumbling. I am terrified. So am I. Terrified that you will walk away in 4 months. Terrified that I found something real and will lose it because of a contract I wrote when I was too stupid to know what I actually needed. What about your company? The inheritance requirement? We can stay married, for real. Or we can divorce and I will lose everything. Either way, I am not letting you go without a fight. Rosa searched his face, looking for doubt or deception. She found only raw honesty and vulnerability. If we do this, if we try to make this real, we do it right. Slowly. No more pretending. We actually get to know each other. Agreed. And Tommy comes first. Always. I would not have it any other way. That boy already has my heart. And if it does not work out, Vincent smiled slightly, then we will deal with it together. Like partners. Like people who care about each other. No more contracts or agreements. Just honesty and effort. Rosa took a shaky breath. I cannot believe I am considering this. Is that a yes? It is a maybe. A cautious, terrified maybe. Vincent pulled her into his arms, and Rosa let herself sink into the embrace. His heart beat steady against her ear, solid and real. I can work with maybe, he whispered into her hair. They stood together on the balcony as dawn broke over Chicago. The city awakened below them, full of people starting their own complicated days. Somewhere in those streets, Rosa had scrubbed floors and counted pennies and prayed for miracles. Now she stood in a penthouse with a man who loved her son and maybe impossibly loved her too. A man who knew her worst secrets and stayed anyway. Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Are you two hugging? Does this mean Tio Vincent is not too busy anymore? Vincent and Rosa looked at each other and laughed. I am never too busy for you again, Vincent promised, scooping Tommy into their embrace. Rosa watched Vincent with her son and felt something settle in her chest. Hope. Fragile and new, but real. Their arrangement had been fake. The feelings were real. The ending they had planned was canceled. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. Rosa had entered Vincent's world to save her son. She was staying because she had found something she had stopped believing existed. A man who saw past her mistakes to the person she truly was. A home that felt like belonging. A love that had grown in the spaces between their carefully maintained lies. The contract said 4 more months. But contracts could be renegotiated. Hearts could change the terms. And sometimes, the best agreements were the ones you made without lawyers or signatures. Just 2 people choosing each other despite the odds. As the morning sun painted the sky in shades of gold, Rosa finally believed in happy endings again. The end.